Okay, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the council chambers. We started today at 3 o'clock as the Board of Health, and at 4:30 we opened our council meeting for this evening. And it got chiseled away a little bit at the agenda. And just a reminder before I open the public meeting, if you have one of these gadgets on you, if you could just make sure maybe it's on silence or the volume turned down, just so we don't get interrupted, that would be greatly appreciated. Again, Judy Ann McCauley is in our viewing room, our broadcast booth, and we appreciate our volunteers, and she certainly spends a lot of time helping broadcast our meetings. Council members, if you can go to page 7, we'll start our public meeting now. I do now officially open the public meetings. They are held under the Planning Act and the Municipal Act. I advise all those in attendance that the Ontario Municipal Board has the power under the Planning Act to dismiss an appeal to either a zoning bylaw and or an official plan amendment. If the appellant does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or does not make a written submission to Norfolk County Council before the zoning bylaw is passed and or the official amendment is adopted, I would also advise everyone in attendance that these meetings are televised, they are web streamed, and all items discussed are in a matter of public record. Our first public meeting tonight deals with staff report DCS 17-21. An application has been received to rezone the subject lands from resort area commercial zone with special provisions 14.18 to resort residential zone with special provisions 14-718, which would permit the establishment of 2 semi-detached vacation homes in addition to the existing single detached vacation home. The property is proposed to be severed into 3 parcels in the future. The special provision would permit relief from several zone provisions. I now open the public meeting on DCS 17-21. I see that Ms. Alicia Call is here. Good to see you. And I would like very much if you would present your report now. Thank you.
An application has been received to rezone the subject lands from resort area commercial with special provision 14.18 to resort residential with special provision 14.718. This zone would permit the establishment of 2 semi-detached vacation homes in addition to the existing single detached vacation home on the property. Relief has also been requested for the following provisions: minimum lot area, minimum exterior side yard, minimum front yard, minimum rear yard, maximum building height, minimum rear yard for decks, minimum projection of decks into a rear yard, and location of parking. The subject lands are 0.36 acres in size and are bound by Walmsley Street, Cedar Drive, and Arnold Street in the resort area of Turkey Point. The north half of the lot contains a 2-story vacation home with a large attached 1-story commercial building. No business currently occupies the commercial space. The south half of the lot is vacant. All surrounding land uses are resort residential in nature and vary between 1- and 2-story cottages. As you can see on the screen, they are proposing 3 separate lots which would be severed should this application be approved. The top lot would have a single detached cottage with parking right here. The middle lot would have a semi-detached cottage with a unit here and a unit here, a deck on the back and a deck on the front, and parking here and here. And the southern lot would have 2 units here and here as well, and parking here, and decks on the back and front as well. The full details would come at the site plan stage for this property. The provincial policy statement directs that development is not permitted within areas impacted by flooding hazards or within areas that would be rendered inaccessible during times of flooding hazards. The subject application is not consistent with these policies of the PPS. The subject lands are located within an area subject to flooding hazards with no safe access. The subject application is not consistent with the provincial policy statement. The subject lands are designated resort residential in the Norfolk County Official Plan. Section 3.8.3 of the official plan states the Long Point and Turkey Point resort areas are existing resort communities that contain a number of both vacation homes and permanent residential dwellings. Both resort areas are served by limited road links, which could be compromised to the point of interrupting safe access to the entire communities during a severe storm event. The county shall enact an emergency flood response plan in consultation with the Conservation Authority to address such matters as emergency warning, backup communications, and coordinating safe locations within the resort areas. An emergency flood response plan has not been enacted at this time, although it is currently being drafted by staff. Staff are not aware of when this plan will be finalized and brought to council. Section 4.6.2 of the official plan states that the entirety of the resort residential area is considered to be hazard lands and that new development is contemplated in the form of infilling on existing lots, replacement of existing buildings, minor additions, and accessory uses. New lot creation is not anticipated in the resort residential designation. Section 4.3.2.2b states that development is not permitted within areas rendered inaccessible to people and vehicles during times of flooding hazards. As previously noted, safe access has not been provided to date for the subject lands. The applicants are proposing floodproofing and safety measures such as locating the bedrooms on the second story of the cottages. Staff appreciate this effort and recognize that it is not the fault of the applicant or agent. The safe access issues have not been addressed at this time. However, the subject application does not comply with the policies of the official plan. The subject lands are subject to the policies of the Lakeshore Special Policy Area. The LSPA contains resort community design guidelines for replacement and infill buildings. The subject application complies with the policies regarding footprints, setbacks, and lot coverage. However, it fails to meet the requirements of the guidelines for bulk and height. The bulk guideline indicates that replacement and infill buildings must be in scale with the average cottage size in Turkey Point and respect the cottage form and character of the community. Staff calculated the average floor area of vacation homes and dwellings within 100 meters of the subject lands and found it to be 924 square feet. The proposed new semi-detached cottages are proposed to be 2,304 square feet, which is approximately 2.5 times larger than the average cottage size in the surrounding area. The height guideline states that the maximum height should be 7.5 meters or 9 meters in areas where the development wouldn't be out of character with surrounding properties. There are some taller vacation homes in the vicinity of the subject lands. However, the cottages to the rear are single-story. The increased height has the potential to result in shadowing and other visual impacts on these lots. A new lot in the resort residential zone is required to be 1 acre in size. A reason for this is to allow for the accommodation of private on-site sewage disposal systems without detrimental effects to the drinking water. A report was prepared by South Brant Excavating Incorporated and has indicated that the lots are suitable for the septic systems proposed. Staff have some concerns with the accuracy of this report. As per the Ontario Building Code, septic tanks are required to be located 3 meters from the property lines and 1.5 meters from structures. The tiles must maintain a setback of 3 meters from the property line and 5 meters from the structures. The proposal as currently presented does not meet these requirements, and as such, it is unclear how the report concludes that the sites are large enough to accommodate private on-site sewage disposal systems. The agent is aware of these setback issues, but a resolution has not yet been reached for this issue. Staff have some concerns about the ability of the proposed lots to accommodate an appropriate amount of amenity space for 2 units per property. It is the professional opinion of community planning staff that the proposal represents an overdevelopment of the site. The surrounding areas and most properties in Turkey Point contain vacation homes which allow for 1 unit per property. Generally, an area as large as the subject lands would comprise 2 lots with 1 seasonal unit per lot. 5 units are proposed to be located on the subject lands. As vacation units, a high amount of use occurs in the summer when the majority of people are using patios, decks, and green space for barbecuing and socializing outdoors. Campfires and other evening activities are also common. Staff are concerned about where these activities will occur on the proposed lots in combination. There are no semi-detached cottages within the general area of this application, and staff are not aware of any in Turkey Point. The increase in density on this property may not be compatible with the neighborhood. Comments were received from both the public and internal and external agencies. Agency comments of note include the following. From Tourism and Economic Development staff at Norfolk County, they support the proposed development as it will provide additional overnight accommodations within the county. Staff agree with the statement by the applicant that the commercial business on the property is not economically viable. Long Point Region Conservation Authority have indicated that the proposal is contrary to the LPRCA shoreline policies for development in the Lake Erie flood hazard zone. No safe access or egress exists for evacuation or emergency assistance. Staff have also received many comments from Turkey Point residents, which are attached as appendices to the staff report. The map shown on the screen outlines where supportive and opposing property owners are located. The red area is the subject lands, the orange area is property owners who are opposed to the development, and green is property owners who are supportive of the development. It is noted that the residents closest to the subject lands are generally unsupportive of the proposal as presented. The comments received can be summarized as follows. The supportive comments include the proposal is better than the current use of the property as commercial is not working. The site should be cleaned up. There's a potential increase for increased property values. The proposal will fit well within the neighborhood and will result in more options for quality rental units. Opposing comments include the following. Density is too high. Single detached vacation homes would be more appropriate. There's the potential for decreased property values. The vacation homes are too large. The height is too high. There's potential for the vacation homes to be used year-round. Traffic will increase. The proposal will result in an invasion of privacy. Septic issues are possible, natural habitat degradation, and loss of peace and quiet. Councillor Oliver was not able to attend tonight's meeting but has submitted comments to council and staff outlining his support for this application. He also outlined that the applicants requested the meeting be deferred until such time as he could attend, but they were denied. However, community planning staff did not receive this request and are unclear on who it was submitted to. Staff understand the desire of some property owners in Turkey Point to see this property redeveloped into something other than vacant commercial. However, it is very important that it is developed in an appropriate manner with a use that maintains the character of the neighborhood. Density is generally encouraged by the provincial policy statement and by the county. However, not every location is suitable for more intense development. Staff have had discussions with the agent and applicants about the potential for single detached vacation homes rather than semi-detached. However, there's not a willingness to amend the proposal. It is the professional opinion of community planning staff that while this proposal assists with meeting some of the tourism and economic development objectives of the county, it does not comply with the policies of the provincial policy statement or the official plan regarding development within a hazardous area. The development is premature without an emergency flood response plan in place. Further, the proposal is not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood in terms of character, density, bulk, and height. For these reasons, staff do not support this application and recommend that it be refused.
Very much, Alicia. Questions from council to staff, and I'll start with Councillor Columbus, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To planning staff, so we're looking at 5 vacation home rental units, including a septic system and parking on 0.36 acres. Is that right?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Because there was some confusion. I thought it was 6 actually one time, but I guess it's 5. And what is the period of use for a vacation home in Turkey Point?
Through the chair, it's not regulated under the zoning. It just simply says seasonal.
So really these could be occupied any time of the year.
That's correct.
Okay, and how do we monitor, how does the county monitor use of vacation homes in Turkey Point or throughout the county?
Through you, Chair. Currently, the county doesn't monitor that. It's on a complete basis only.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Block.
Mayor Luke, thank you very much. Through you to staff, Alicia, and thank you for your report. I'm just wondering, you're recommending refusal, but would you have recommended agreement with this application had it been for one cottage only per lot? If it was 1 story versus 2 stories, if it was more in fitting with the vacation style of the other homes in the area, would you have approved that if that application came in?
Through the mayor, we wouldn't be able to support it in any case due to the safe access issue.
Okay, so you still wouldn't be able to support that. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. The cottage in the picture that you showed us, the one that will still exist there, how high is that? Would it meet the 7.5 meter requirement, or is it over that?
Through the mayor, I believe it's 8 meters in height.
8 meters? So it's already over it?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. And this property, it is a commercial property?
yes.
And how many parking spots does it have?
Through the mayor, I'm not sure how many it has right now.
Probably lots from the picture in it.
Yes.
So if someone was to open a commercial business out of there, our planning staff feel that there would be less traffic with the commercial property than with the two proposed cottages?
Through the mayor, I don't know if there'd be more or less.
We don't plan for that?
I didn't do a comparison, but it could be more than what's proposed.
Okay, because like I know there were some neighbors that didn't want to see this development move ahead. I think they'd be more upset if it was turned into a nightclub, for example, which it would probably be allowed to be considering the zoning it has now. All right, and then I noticed that they're using septic tanks versus holding tanks. And
That's correct.
When was that changed?
Through the mayor, I believe the Ontario Building Code changed in the last couple years, and it no longer permits new development on holding tanks.
Okay, and then how many parking spots are included with this proposal? As it is, there was 6, 8?
Through the mayor, it's 2 per unit, so 10.
6 units.
It's 5 units, so there's 10 spaces.
Okay, now, my last question, I guess, like one of the things you're recommending refusal is because it doesn't have the emergency flood response safe access plan. But in the last 4 years, how many development applications has planning approved without that?
Through the mayor, I don't believe we've ever supported new lot creation, just redevelopment or additions to existing cottages. But I'm not sure how many.
Right, but development has certain stages, so there's your minor additions, your full development. I'm pretty sure that some of the cottages down in Turkey Point are brand new buildings. So they would have had to have been approved by planning, would they not? Since it is new development?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in relation to that answer, the way the policy reads is that it's for new builds and new development. So renovation, although it's an addition to, the use already exists. So this is a separate case.
I'm confused. Renovations include tearing down the building and putting up a new building? Because that's what is happening in Turkey Point right now.
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, those uses already exist, so that's still a renovation. These are creating new developments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brunton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Excuse me, and through you to the planner. I'm a little bit confused. We, and I say we, or the committee at Long Point, have dealt with the access egress issue, I think, several times now. And I'm just wondering, that, like, if we get or have a plan for access egress, will that go in the official plan? Is that the long-term idea once we get that in place?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the idea for the safe access policy would be that we would update the official plan, what's in the official plan currently. We don't have policy that meets the PPS in that regard. So with this plan in place, it would allow us to update the official plan and we would meet that policy.
Okay, and with that, can we hold up our official plan until we get that policy?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as part of the official plan review, council actually asked for us not to deal with that specific policy. It's actually on the table to take that policy out of the official plan. That's where we are today, and there'll be further discussions on May 18th when we have a council meeting on the official plan review.
So if we're in the process of trying to develop that, and we ask that it be put in there, can we, I guess my question is, can we hold up the official plan till we get it? If we as council wish to do that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you could, although what perhaps another alternative would be is to have a separate official plan amendment to deal with only that issue.
Okay, thank you. My next question is, what other uses under the current zoning bylaw can be applied to that commercial site now? What other types of uses? I know it used to be a boat repair shop, but what, Councillor Height mentioned nightclub, or what other kind of uses can apply to that property now?
Through the mayor, the current zoning permits convenience store, personal service shop, place of entertainment, restaurant, takeout restaurant, tourist information building, tourist retail establishment, and a dwelling unit accessory to a permitted commercial use. And then the special provision also allows marine craft, accessory store, real estate office, deli, garden and landscape supply, and grocery store.
So I assume based on floor area, we could have an entertainment place there with bands and all those kind of things going at night?
That's true.
Lots
That's
of
correct.
entertainment?
Yes.
And could there be multiple uses? Like convenience store in one half,
Yes.
entertainment facility in the other, with no other zoning changes?
Through the chair, it's subject to site plan control, so if they were changing the use, they may have to do that, but they wouldn't need a zoning change.
Okay, and that would be just for what, parking maybe, things
Yes.
like that? Okay. I'm in reading, and I may be jumping ahead here a bit, but and I'll read it to you. I'm a little confused with this part of the report. It says, in your page 28 of the report, and I'll briefly, it says, the application does not comply with the policies of the provincial policy statement 2014 or the official plan regarding development within a hazardous area. Yet I read the planning report by the applicant, totally the opposite. Totally he says it does meet the provincial policy and does meet the official plan, and I'm just wondering, kind of confuses me.
Through the mayor, it's just the difference of professional opinions.
Interesting. Okay. I guess I had one other one here. Is it, if like we have dealt with, maybe it's because it's a little bit more, it's creating lots, but at Long Point, we have dealt with these issues of access egress and the flooding, et cetera, for hazard lands. Had Long Point dealt with this and gave its approval, would you be satisfied with that?
Through the mayor, I don't believe so, because I don't think it would meet the policies of the official plan. We still don't have the safe access plan in place.
Okay, but we have overruled that too.
Yeah, it's still not in place though, so I don't think we could support it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Black, please.
Mayor Luke, and just on drainage issues, I know this property is fairly close to the area where we've had some drainage problems, and would this lot be affected by those drainage problems, and where are they at? I think they were such that they're very difficult to resolve, and really there was no way of getting the water away. So is this in that same capture zone?
Through the mayor, I'm not sure where Public Works is at with that, but they do require a master grading plan to be submitted as part of any future consent applications if this zoning were approved. So it would at least deal with the drainage on that site.
So that would be a future consideration then, not really something to be dealt with now.
No, they want the overarching policy and bylaw in place before proceeding with that.
Okay, so it may be, I know the other area is having a lot of difficulty trying to get rid of the water. It's just the water table's so high there, it's practically impossible. So it could be a problem for this property as well. Would you agree with that?
Through the mayor, I'm not sure about any of the drainage issues there, but
I don't know if Public Works would be able to comment on that or not.
Any comments, Ms. Robinson, on the question of drainage issues?
Through the mayor to council, there are drainage issues in Turkey Point regardless of whether or not this development proceeds or doesn't proceed. and it would be something that would be addressed through the site plan control, should this be approved. One of the comments that Public Works has made is that on-site stormwater management would be required through site plan control. Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions to staff from council members? Okay, and certainly you have a chance later. I would like to ask if the applicant, Brooke Hayward, or an agent of the LBS Group is in attendance. You can come up, and I am going to follow procedure here and ask if there is anyone in attendance who wishes to speak in support of the application, and of course, we always begin with the applicant or the agent, should they choose to speak. I know who you are. You just give us your name for the record.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Arians. I'm a professional planner with the IBI Group. We are architects, planners, and engineers. I have an office in Brantford, but I mainly operate out of our office in downtown Hamilton. Brooke is here with me as well as a representative of the ownership group. With your permission, Mr. Mayor, I do have a PowerPoint presentation I'd like to review.
Absolutely. We'll get right to that.
Thank you.
Just take us a second here, but absolutely.
Maybe while that's being loaded up, I can say what we really have here on this property is a tired, deteriorating commercial building which has really outlived its lifespan. It's outlived its desirability for commercial uses. So what do we do with it? Well, you've heard staff indicate that they couldn't support singles, they can't support semis. There's no residential use that's appropriate for this property either, based on the safe access policies. So the question is, do we keep this as a derelict, tired, old commercial building with potential uses which are incompatible with the neighborhood, or do we actually seek redevelopment? And when staff indicated that we don't allow severances in Turkey Point, well, there really aren't other infilling applications like this, where you've got a large commercial property which does have the potential to be severed. So the fact that, severances are rare in Turkey Point is not something to hold against this particular project. You're all very familiar with this site. This is a photograph showing the existing commercial use that's there, the existing two-story cottage on the property. And from a streetscape and from a neighborhood aesthetic standpoint, as I indicated, we really have a derelict commercial use which is no longer viable, and it's not generating taxes, it's not generating employment, it's a use that's outlived its purpose. The property has 73 meters of frontage on Cedar. I mean, that's a significant amount of frontage. The depth averages from 18 to 20 meters in depth, and we have over 1,460 square meters in area. This is the development concept that is before you today. The existing cottage at the north end of the property, the two-story home, the single-family home, will remain as a seasonal rental building, and 2 new buildings are proposed. And in order to really take advantage of your very strong economic and tourism policies, the owners have decided, why don't we pursue the duplexing or the semi-detached capability of this property and open it up for even more tourist accommodation. And that's why there are 2 semi-detached or two-family seasonal cottages being proposed. You see the driveways that are intended for the development. Each lot will have 2 driveways and 4 parking spots, more than adequate parking to accommodate the tenants of these buildings, more than adequate amenity space, both on the ground, on decks, on front porches, more than enough space to accommodate a septic system, and more than enough to really enhance the streetscape along Cedar Drive, but the removal of that huge expansive commercial area. Now, the cottages that are being designed for this property are meant to reflect that character of the Turkey Point community. And in fact, these do not look like semi-detached units. They look like singles. They look like ordinary cottages, ordinary 2-family resort type of development that we find throughout the Turkey Point area. This is an artist's rendering of the project. And typically, singles and semis are not subject to site plan control, but our owners group has agreed to voluntarily come forward with a site plan application. So you will actually see the building envelopes. You'll see the grading, the stormwater management, the servicing, the septic systems, the building elevations. That will all be part of a detailed site plan submission that's proposed. So what we are seeking is a zoning application to remove the no longer appropriate commercial zone and to establish a more appropriate residential modified zone. Having seen the staff report and having worked with staff, I've identified really there are 4 issues: the septic system and the ability to accommodate waste on the property, the safe access issue that we've heard about, there's an issue about built form and compatibility, and a 4th issue, which is similar to that, dealing with density. And I'd like to deal with these 4 issues. First of all, from a septic system design, the planner is correct. The original concept did have the septic systems too close to the lot lines. That's all been revised. We've actually removed some of the building footprint, and the septic systems now fully comply with the Ontario Building Code, and there is ample room for on-site septic systems. We're also investigating the use of a tertiary treatment system, which, as you're all familiar with, is the state-of-the-art, the cleanest possible septic system that you could require. With respect to the issue of safe access, we understand it's a provincial requirement through the provincial policy statements. And we understand that Turkey Point is flood-prone, but Turkey Point, unlike Long Point, does have 2 points of access. It's different. I mean, there are other ways of getting in and out of Turkey Point. And I understand with Councillor Oliver, we've had several discussions, that Council has given direction to staff and to the Conservation Authority to implement that emergency access plan within the next 6 months. If Council approves this rezoning and we go through a site plan process, these units aren't going to be constructed for 7, 8, 9 months. Your emergency access plan should be in place by that time. The use is also seasonal. The business plan that my client has developed is from May to October. If the cottage is occupied during that time, they will have a viable project. And it's important that we all realize that it is a seasonal. It's not a permanent residential development. It's not a settlement. It's not, a serviced area where we can have permanent use. I would also point out these dwellings will be flood-proofed, and not just flood-proof, but they will be alarmed as well. Sensors can be established along the sides of the building so that if there is floodwaters rising, the alarms go off. Phone calls are made. Tenants are evacuated well in advance of any risk. So these will, in fact, be state-of-the-art, flood-proofed and alarmed buildings, which we hope will set the standard not only for Turkey Point, but for Long Point and other lakeshore communities. As staff indicated, the bedrooms are on the upper floor and there will be no risk to the occupants. We initially thought we would apply for the Long Point permits before or in advance of the zoning applications. But in dealing with staff at the Conservation Authority, they really directed us to deal with the principle of the land use first, get your zoning in place, and then come back and get your permit at the Conservation Authority. So that's why we haven't, pursued the permits at the Conservation Authority. We intend to do so, should Council agree with this. The third issue that was raised in the staff report, it's kind of a subjective issue, and it deals with the built form, and what is the character of Turkey Point, and what is the character of this area. And the thing I'd like to point out is that the existing building has a footprint, the commercial component, of over 400 square meters. I mean, that is a huge, large building, and it's going to be replaced with 2 smaller cottages. So from that standpoint, the massing, the bulk, the size of the structures on this property is going to be reduced. The footprints are going to be reduced. The parking area is going to be reduced. So the built form, while it is different from commercial, it will be smaller. The massing, the scale, the new dwellings will still be smaller than the average new dwellings being built within the Turkey Point community over the last 5 years. And with respect to the height issue, we understand that on February 14th, Council passed a direction to staff to limit the height in Turkey Point to 9 meters. These will comply with the 9-meter requirement. The maximum building height permitted currently is 7.5. The height we are requesting is 8 meters, still below your 9-meter cap that you will be implementing in the near future. So from that standpoint, height should not be an issue if we're below the 9-meter requirement. The other thing I'd like to point out, and this was included in our planning justification report that Councillor Brunton referred to, is when we look at 73 meters of frontage in Turkey Point, what can that typically accommodate? And that's what this slide shows. When we look to the area on to the north, and we analyze other sections of 73 meters of frontage, you can have as many as 5 cottages in a row. You can have 4, you can have 3, you can have 5, you can have 3, all in this immediate area. If you take, the scale and you apply 73-meter increments, you get a variety of built form, a variety of massing, not unlike what we are proposing. We are proposing 3 dwellings. In similar situations, you've got as many as 5 dwellings. So from that standpoint, it does match the character and it does match the streetscape of Turkey Point. This slide illustrates the significant landscaping improvements that will be undertaken. All of that green, or most of that green on the left-hand side of the slide, is parking lots. That's going to be significantly enhanced with landscaping and plantings and gardens and flower beds. It will be a significant streetscape improvement that will really enhance the general neighborhood. And when we look at new development in the Turkey Point area, let's look at the built form immediately around this property. This is one directly across the road. This is one under construction immediately to the south. These are other homes just around the corner. A little bit further on around the corner, 3 stories in height, large buildings. These are approximately 350 to 600 meters from the subject lands. Again, 2.5-story, large buildings. The character of Turkey Point is not just that which sits there today, but we do planning for 20 years, and it's the character as a neighborhood evolves that we have to be cognizant of too. Turkey Point is stable, but it's also dynamic. It's changing. New built forms, new residential development, new forms of housing are under construction, and what is proposed by my client group is totally compatible with that. As far as building setbacks and spatial separations, on this slide I would point out, and there is a pointer here, this yard would typically be considered a side yard. And when we have cottage development on a side yard, your zoning bylaw is 1.2 meters. Some municipalities, it's 1.5 meters for a side yard. The side yards we have are 7 meters, 6 meters, and 9 meters. So from that standpoint, compatibility is enhanced, building setbacks are enhanced, spatial separations are enhanced, and with the existing cottage already close to the street line, we're maintaining that. We're matching the street line of the existing built form on this particular block of properties and respecting our neighbors by providing an ample setback from their properties. And on top of that, while we have requested a modified front yard setback, keep in mind the significant distance from the front of these dwellings to the actual shoulder of the paved portion of the road. That's about 10 meters of landscaping, which is going to add to that spatial separation, which is going to add to that enhanced front yard setback and an enhanced streetscape. So there's good separations, there's good opportunities for landscaping, and I would suggest with these separations, we are in fact minimizing any privacy and overview concerns that the neighbors may have. With respect to the issue of compatibility, we will be adding fencing around the properties. We are providing adequate parking, and our clients, the owners of these property, also reside in Turkey Point. They have cottages in the Turkey Point area, so it's not like they're absent landlords. And I guess the thing that struck me the most when I read the staff report, the suggestions were it was incompatible with the character and it was incompatible with the neighborhood, but the staff report did not identify any specific adverse impact as a result of that opinion. What is the negative aspects of that of those statements. What is the adverse impact? And I struggle, I can't find them myself. It's a residential use in a predominantly residential area. And to be compatible does not mean to be the same as or to be identical to. It means to live in harmony with. And semis can certainly live in harmony with the single-family homes or the single-family cottages more so than the commercial use can. Lastly, the issue of density was raised, and planning staff mentioned this, that provincial planning initiatives are out there, a little bit more compact development, a little bit more efficient use of land and services, but not in all locations, and I agree with that. But the ability to purchase a commercial use and to have a viable redevelopment means a little bit more compact development. It means that semis are in order to make this purchase and to make this deal work. On top of that, your official plan has very strong economic development and tourism policies. Staff read the comments from the economic development folks, and clearly they are supportive. They want high-quality tourist accommodation. And of course, from a density perspective, one of the downsides of density is always parking and traffic. Because the use is seasonal and because we have so many parking spots, that really is not an issue in this application. I don't know what happened, but I somehow pressed the wrong button and I missed a whole bunch of slides here. Maybe just go to the last slide, Chris, please. Thank you. So to conclude, all the technical agencies are in support, save and except the Long Point Region Conservation Authority staff. You have public comments in support of the application. You have public comments against the application. Again, I would ask you, what really is the adverse impact of this development? And I would be stretching it to find adverse impact. This application is an appropriate replacement of a non-viable commercial use. I would suggest to you that it does blend in with the character of Turkey Point and it will provide quality tourist accommodations. Safe access is being provided. The dwellings will be flood-proofed and alarmed, as I mentioned, and it will be a compatible development with the neighborhood. In my opinion, this does represent good planning. It is in the public interest, and it is fully in line with the direction of your official plan, particularly since you are, in fact, pursuing that safe access component, because that clearly is key. As staff indicated, Councillor Oliver is not here. He is in full support, and we would ask, with all due respect, that Council also consider the application as having merit, and notwithstanding the staff report, support the rezoning in the manner as we've applied for. Those are my submissions, Mr. Mayor, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions, and hopefully, if the public does speak, I get an opportunity to address any concerns.
Yeah, you will at the end, yes, sir. And
Thank you.
questions, thank you, and questions from council members to Mr. Arians. Councillor Black, please.
Mayor Luke, thank you very much, and through you to Mr. Arians. And I did ask a question about drainage to staff, and they said that you would, under site plan control, have to provide stormwater management on site.
Yes, sir.
So I'm not sure if I saw that in any plan, but how would you be addressing that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, typically when we do a site plan like this, when it's an infilling situation, we look at the drainage patterns in the surrounding area, and as long as we have an outlet for that drainage, we will direct it in that direction. If there is no outlet readily available, then we look for on-site storage. And in situations like this, rather than building a pond for storage, we look at our driveways and we do structures like the plastic tubing and the piping underneath driveways, underneath amenity areas, and places like that, we capture and hold our storm water. So it's a site plan matter that I'm very confident we can address.
Okay, even though the water table is only like a foot down?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And looking at your map here, I wasn't sure where the actual property line was. Like there's a line, and then you had the green space out to the road, and cars parked on that green space. Now, I'm wondering, is that, yeah, right there?
Okay.
So where the cars are parked, is that on municipal right-of-way, or is that property part of the private property ownership?
So Through you, Mr. Mayor, the artist put the cars on the municipal right-of-way. The cars obviously should be located on the driveway.
Okay, well, it sort of gives me the wrong impression that, you know, when you say that you have more than adequate parking, but really, you know, it's, if that, you're telling me that those cars are actually on the municipal right-of-way.
Well, with all due respect, when we look at this parking area here, there's the two spaces. These are on the right-of-way. When we look at these two driveways, here are the two parking spaces.
Yeah.
This is the right-of-way. Similarly, here's the two parking spots, here's the right-of-way. Here's one on the right spot and one on the right-of-way. But really,
Okay.
it was meant to just illustrate, you know,
Okay.
where the parking was
Yep,
to be
yep.
accommodated.
You've answered my question, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Excuse me. Thank you, Councilor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the deputation. On that slide there, it shows parking for 10 cars. Is that not right?
Yes, sir.
So,
5 units, 2 cars per unit, so that's 10 cars.
okay, great. Now, I'm not sure if you know the term GSC level, the elevation.
Oh, for the geodetic information for floodproofing?
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what would be the number in meters that you're at?
I think the flood elevation is 176.6, and our ground floor will be above that.
Okay, so
So we have to bring the buildings up, and I'll just, refer to this slide here. You can see the ground has been raised slightly underneath the building pads to get that finished floor elevation of 176.6.
okay, so you're above the
We will be above that.
Conservation Authority's limit, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, is there a basement in any of these buildings?
No, sir. There
No.
will be slab on grade.
Okay, thank you. And is your client aware that this will increase their taxes considerably compared to having an empty commercial building?
Through the mayor, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Broughton.
I can add to that, development charges and park fees and everything else will be paid as well.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Thank you, John, for your presentation.
You're welcome.
When I look at this, can I ask you a question? Does your client own the property, or is it optioned, or?
So originally it was optioned. I looked at Brooke. They own it now, yes.
own it?
Yes. Okay, so closing May 12th, it's a firm deal.
Okay, and if excuse me, and question, I guess, is if you weren't successful with this, do you have other ideas what you would use the property in as commercial state?
Well, the only option is go with the existing commercial zoning.
Which is,
It's you know, it's a wide open restaurant, service shop, convenience store. You know, it's a wide open commercial use.
entertainment center?
It's places of entertainment are permitted, restaurants, licensed, unlicensed entertainment, patios.
So as of now, you're sitting with the residential idea.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And my last question, if I may, is, and I certainly respect our staff's opinion, the professional opinion, I guess they call it. You have indicated that it does meet the provincial policy,
Yes.
and it does meet the official plan.
Yes, sir.
So can you clarify that
Sure.
a little bit for me?
So, as Ms. Cull indicated, as planners, we come to our own independent opinions.
Sure.
The way I look at it, yes, there is a safe access requirement. This development, however, it's not permanent, it's seasonal.
Right?
This development will be fully flood-proofed. This development does have safe access,
Right.
two points of entry into the community. This development, in my opinion, does meet the provincial objectives, that we don't put people at risk in a floodplain area because of the seasonal nature of the use.
Okay.
The other components, of course, are official plan compliance, and that deals with compatibility and neighborhood character. And I'm satisfied that these units will comply with that overall Turkey Point character. So I'm satisfied we meet the provincial objectives and the local objectives.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councilor Columbus, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. John, is there ever any thought to, down the road, sever these units as separate properties?
Through the chair, yes, that's the intent.
That's the intent,
Yes.
to split them up?
Yeah.
Okay, so how would you deal with the septic systems then? If you're doing that, like you'd have one septic system for each, for the two, and I see all kinds of complications if you're doing that.
So if the councillor could look at the slide, for this dwelling, the tile bed is located here, and the lot line is located right, proposed lot line is here. For this dwelling, the tile bed is over here, and the proposed lot line is here. And for this dwelling, the tile bed is here. So each of the three dwellings will have a self-contained tile bed completely on the proposed lots.
Okay, but you're not going to separate each of these, the two units and the one under one roof.
Oh, sorry.
That's what I meant.
Okay, my apologies. So splitting the semi-units? No, sir. That's not going to happen. But splitting the buildings so that the two units is on one lot, that's what would happen, sir.
Okay, thank you.
My apologies. I misinterpreted that.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in attendance who wishes to speak in support of the application? Is there anyone in attendance who wishes to speak in opposition or in general to the application? I see a hand here. If you come to the microphone, and we'll need a signature. Is the book there? If you just write your name, please, for the record. We need that. And if
Yep. My name's Leo Singer. I own two properties down there. One of them, pictures that he used of a cottage just being built. Just going through some of it, going off his slide also, that you can see that the people that are for it, it's not in their backyard. The people that are against it, it's in their backyard. And just like always, if it's in your backyard, you do care. And so the people that are living there, it's not in their interest. They asked for numerous variances. I asked for one of mine when I built it. These guys asked for 7 different things. One of them, they went from, the code asked for, I'm going to say it in feet because we're all older. It asked for 19 and a half feet allowance, and they've got it down to 1.8 feet, 1.08 feet. So it's almost 13 inches is what they're going to allow. Looking at their picture, it looks great. Lots of green, but you guys own it. All the front yards, there is no front yard. It's all owned by the city. There is no backyard for the tenants, which is what they're going to be, tenants to enjoy. I own a cottage. I have front yard. I have backyard. I understand the importance of sitting in a lawn chair and not being on the street doing it. As I stated, it doesn't really have a backyard. Most of it's taken up by the septic system. Yes, it has 73 or 76 meters of frontage, but what good is 76 meters of frontage when you have no back depth, which is what the biggest problem the neighbors, us, have. There is no depth in that, which takes away from the enjoyment of the tenants that are going to be there. They're asking to change it from commercial to residential. They try to scare us by saying they can put a bar there, an entertainer. You can put a strip joint there. It would never get past approval of this council. Just wouldn't get past. They would not comply to the character of the area. So you can say what you want, just not going to happen. As I stated before, it's not in the public interest, and the public is the neighbors. And when he had the slide up, every neighbor was opposed to it. We're just not, they say residential, All they did was change it to a different word of commercial. It's semis. It's going to be rented. It's owned by a corporation, group of people, whatever. Not owners. Owners are there. Yes, some of the cottages get rent weeks here, a week there, but most of the owners own their cottages, enjoy their cottages, go to their... There is no commercial type family homes in this area, which will take away from the character of the area and the small town feeling. The area, there is some 3-story ones, not in our area. They also say they have 2 access points. That's at the other side of the town. So as a tenant, you would only know the one that you came down. If they were doing single-family homes, that would be more in character. And I don't think the neighbors would mind that kind of redevelopment. But trying to call it residential when you're putting up commercial buildings, which is really rentals, is not residential. If somebody was doing it beside your house at home, wherever you guys live, you would definitely not think of it as a residential home. It's commercial. If they're putting up 2 buildings, 2 units, 4 units, 6 units, it's commercial. Somebody picked up on that. The drawings show like they got lots of parking. Unfortunately, all the cars are they're on your property. The septic allowances, I guess he stated they made some adjustments, but they were beyond all the